Yo, what's up, everybody, and welcome to my weekly live Q&A episode number 52, 52. My name is Danny Segura. I am a mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com, and as I said, this is my weekly live Q&A, where I answer all your questions regarding the combat sports world and much more. And this week, a lot to talk about. A lot went down. Nothing like super huge, but there's just a lot of little stuff just because we've had a crazy amount of events. Not the biggest events, but events nonetheless that obviously still matter. So we had UFC Vegas 25 on Saturday. Not the biggest card, but it did give us some good action. Then on Thursday we had a PFL number 2 with Rory McDonald picking up a win over Curtis Milner in the main event. And I believe that was it as far as mixed martial arts is concerned. Then this week we have UFC Vegas 26. Obviously, this coming Saturday, pretty weak card to be honest. Then we have PFL 3. That looks to be good. Kayla Harrison returns. Fabricio Wardou makes his debut with PFL, and then we also have Bellator 258, which was supposed to be a banger with Anthony Rumble Johnson taking on Joel Romero. At this point, we know that Joel Romero is out of the fight. They found a replacement for Johnson. We still have a nice little title fight going on at 135 pounds in that card in the main event with Juan Archuleta defending his belt, I believe, for the first time against Sergio Pettis. That's going to be a nice fight. So looking forward to that, even though that Rumble Romero fight is off. Let's see what else. Also, we got Canelo fighting Billy Joe Saunders this weekend as well. So that's gonna be pretty neat. I believe it's this weekend, right? And yeah, that's as far as mixed martial arts and big boxing is concerned. So a lot to talk about. Like always, I always take the Twitter questions first, and then I go over to the YouTube live chat to answer your questions. So not many Twitter questions this week. Y'all were slacking. We only got about a few. So if you want to ask stuff on the YouTube live chat, go ahead. I think I'll be doing the majority of the talking there. Sounds good? All right. So again, like and subscribe. You know the deal. Rocking my Atletico Madrid jersey. Big game. Big game this Saturday. It'll probably define who wins La Liga, to be quite honest. Obviously, Atletico Madrid taking on Barcelona Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. Big game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, so let's get this thing going. First question is by 8 Passive Wokeness. And a little bit of a weird question here. But he says, John's Bones Jones haters are trying to say John Jones is washed because Santos and Reyes are on losing streaks. This is idiotic argument because who has done great in their careers after losing to John Bones Jones besides DC and maybe Gus. By that logic, he's been washed since the day one. Since day one, even though he's undefeated. Yeah. I don't know who's saying that. That's why I say this is a bit of a weird question. I don't know anybody. I don't know a single person saying that. Maybe your circle, but at least in mine and what I can see on my timeline and what I see from other fellow journalists, I don't see people complaining about John Jones being washed. I don't see that at all. I mean, if you can clarify on the live chat, on the YouTube live chat, who's saying that, if there's anyone prominent saying that, I can address it, maybe look it up. But from what I'm concerned, like people respect John Jones and everybody still sees him as the GOAT. I mean, there's a few people that see his PEDs, or his issues, should I say, with USADA as a way to discredit what he's done. But I think most people either think he's the GOAT or one of the GOATs. Like he's up there pound for pound among the very best in the history of the sport. Certainly nobody can dispute that he's the greatest light heavyweight in the history of the sport. And that's a huge compliment because the light heavyweight division historically has hosted and has been a home for some of the best fighters in history, period. So I don't know who's saying that. I do agree that, like, look, Reyes is not looking great. 3 defeats in a row, granted against the very best. Also, against the former champion John Jones, the current champion Jan Blachowicz, and then a guy that promises to be a title contender or is a title contender and likely would fight for the belt pretty soon in Jiri Prochaska. So yeah, I don't know. And Santos had a pretty bad knee injury and lost to Teixeira, who's fighting for the belt. So I don't get that. I don't get that argument as far as being washed. Whoever's making it is insane. It's crazy. It's stupid, to be quite honest. John Jones might not be the fighter he once was, but he's certainly up there. I mean, when he last fought was at a very high level, you know. So yeah, John Jones is still very much an elite fighter. So whoever's saying that is nuts, crazy. And yeah, by that logic, I agree with you. John Jones would be washed. You know, he's been washed years if you go by that logic. Because look at Shogun's career. Look at Rashad Evans' career. Look at just anybody else. Matt Hamill's career. Well, Ryan Bader's been looking good, right, since he left the UFC. But there's Lyoto Machida, right? Like, you can go down the line. A lot of fighters have had downfalls since fighting John Bones Jones. All right, last Twitter question here, a little bit random. The Seaside wants to know a prediction for a return of Valerie Loureda. My answer is pretty simple. Like, who cares, right? She's not like at a spot where she's knocking on a title fight or anything like that. So matchmaking is not really that important. I think Bellator's still in the stages of trying to like groom her and get her experienced and get her give her the amount of time, because she's still very young. I believe she's like 22, 23. Give her the amount of time needed for her to like develop her skills, and once she's at a higher level and much more matured in the sport, then you start throwing her the big dogs her way, right? Tougher ladies with bigger names. So I don't feel like we're gonna see anytime soon Valerie Loureda fight somebody with Elimele McFarlane or anybody of high caliber, and that's fine. You know, I'm not saying that as a diss or anything like that. Again, she's very young. She's like 4 fights deep into her career. She might be like 3 or 4-0 or something like that. Maybe even 2-0. I don't know. Let's see here. She is. Yeah, she's 3-0. Like, dude, she's nowhere close to fighting for a title or anything like that. She's still at a very early stages of her career, and she's looked good. She's 22 years old. She's training with American Top Team, which is huge. You know, right off the bat, those are green flags right there. The fact that she's backed by a very, very legit gym. She also has a huge, extensive background in Taekwondo prior to taking on mixed martial arts. She showed she can crack in her last fight. Knocked out this lady, Tara Graf. You know, not a lot. You don't see a lot of knockouts at in her weight class at 125 pounds. So she's got a lot of pluses. She's definitely got a lot of good things going for her. But again, I think her opponent's just gonna be a girl that's competent in fighting, but you know, that will give her the benefit of entering the fight as a favorite, so she can build on experience and build on skill. That's what we're gonna see next of Valerie Loureda. Don't expect her to be fighting anytime soon any big name. I'm curious, and then this comes down to Bellator matchmaking, if they can meet somewhere in the middle where they can get someone who's like, I don't want to say washed, but like someone that's clearly like close to her level, but at some point had a name or at least some relevancy in the sport as far as being known. I wonder if that's possible, like a 125, if you can find someone like that outside of the UFC, of course. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a while till we see her fight a well-known name, as I said. So, all right. So, like I said, not many Twitter questions for this. I understand that we had a little time change from 10:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So, I kind of expected this. So at this point, I'm going to go over to the YouTube live chat. So again, if you have any questions, throw them there and I'll get to them. I probably won't go the full length of the hour today, but I'll do as much as I can on the YouTube live chat. So now's your chance to throw stuff there. Also, the super chat is open. If you want to donate, feel free. All right, Terrence. Terrence wants to know thoughts on Colby getting a rematch with one win. I don't think he deserves it. He wasn't the champ. I think only champs should get rematches. Yeah, that's a very good question. In a normal situation, I would agree with you. But in this one, I do feel like Colby's still the number one contender. Like the very best fighter, not counting Kamaru Usman, obviously, who's the champion. And look, he's got a win at least, right? Like Jorge Masvidal lost to Kamaru Usman. Usman went on to defend his belt. Masvidal just sat on the sidelines and still got a title shot. So at least this situation is better than that, at the very least. And at the very least, Colby Covington was far more competitive fighting Kamaru the first time than Jorge Masvidal was the first time he fought Usman. So just by default, this situation is a lot better compared to the one that we got at UFC 261 or whatever that card was that we saw Usman defend his title against Masvidal. So I don't hate it. I mean, we're coming off that, so that's at least an improvement. And like I said, I really do think out of the current challengers there, Colby is maybe not the most deserving, because I think you have a point. The fact that he only has one win, that doesn't make him very deserving compared to other fighters who are on long winning streaks. But I do think he's the biggest threat there still. I think merit-wise, Michael Chieso's out there. He's on a nice little streak. Vicente Luque is like on a 3-fight winning streak as well. One that I really, really like is Steven Wonderboy Thompson. He's on a good streak, and I might not necessarily think he's the biggest threat to Kamaru Usman, but I do think he's an interesting and an important challenger for Usman because, we get with these matchups, every fighter is different. But with these matchups that Usman has been getting, it's sort of kind of like the same a little bit. I'm not saying, Colby's the same as Burns, but more or less, they do share a lot of similarities, right? Guys that are strong grapplers that can take down, that are a bit of a submission threat. I mean, Durinho, obviously a huge submission threat. They can crack. They got good striking. They're experienced. I mean, they have similar styles. They overlap a little bit. You can even throw Tyron Woodley in there as well. The only one that's a little bit different there would be Jorge Masvidal, right? But more or less, all those fighters are very similar. With Steven Wonderboy Thompson, you're really throwing a wrench to the whole equation. I mean, you're really throwing Usman a curveball. And I think one of the best things that we use to measure greatness of a champion is different types of challenges, right? It's not always the same challenge, because you can get 10 title defenses in a row, but if all of them are against similar styles, just wrestlers, it's not as impressive if you get a mixed bag, right? If you get a guy that can do jiu-jitsu, if you get a guy that can strike, if you get a guy that can wrestle, if you get a guy that's really good in the clinch, etc., etc., etc. Different body types as well. So with Wonderboy, I do think it'd be a fun fight with Usman as far as being a fun puzzle to solve. I think it'll be an interesting test. I think that'd be the only guy that I would like to see get the title shot first than Colby Covington. But as far as who's the biggest threat, I still think Colby is the biggest threat. But I do like that Wonderboy Thompson fight, as I mentioned, as far as just the challenge itself. I think it's an interesting challenge for Usman. And look, styles make fights. Maybe Usman is the greatest welterweight, today. But he doesn't do his preparation right. He doesn't do his homework right against a guy like Steven Wonderboy Thompson, and he could very well lose his title. And Wonderboy has looked great as well. It's not like I know he's old, but he's been looking better than ever. I mean, I don't think he has like a lot of wins since losing to Pettis, but let me see here. I think he's beaten Luque and he beat Jeff Neal, and that's it. I think it's only 2 wins. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Let me see here. Yeah, only 2 wins since losing to Pettis, and prior to the Pettis fight, he had a loss to Darren Till. So at one point, he was 1-3. A loss to Woodley, lost to Till, lost to Anthony Pettis, and only 1 win against Masvidal. And then since he's bounced back, beating Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal. And Jeff Neal is obviously a monster. Vicente Luque is a monster as well. So I'm all for a Wonderboy Thompson Usman title fight if they go that route. If not, again, I think Colby maybe doesn't deserve it, but just by being the biggest threat there, I'm fine with that. Plus, promotion's promotion, and we know there's going to be a fun little rivalry and build up, or maybe not fun, depending on how far Colby takes it, but could be ugly. But at the same time, grudge match, we know that shit sells. So that's probably what's next. I spoke to Ali Abdelaziz, Usman's manager for MMA Junkie. That interview's up on on our YouTube channel if you want to check that out. I believe it's out on an added playlist as well on my YouTube channel. So if you want to find it easier, you can just head there. It's on the homepage. But yeah, he spoke about that very much about Colby not deserving the fight, but knowing that it's a bit of a money fight compared to the other fights available at 170 for Usman, and but that he doesn't feel like Colby deserves the rematch, and he doesn't like Colby and doesn't want to give the rematch to Colby. But we'll see. We'll see what the UFC says, because they got the biggest say in this one. Speaking of the devil, James Fallon Cote with a question about Wonderboy. What does Wonderboy have to do to get his next title shot, or did the Woodley fights turn the UFC against the idea permanently? No, I don't think it's that. I mean, I just kind of went over his resume. At one point, as I said, he was 1-3 with only one win over Jorge Masvidal and 3 losses to Till, to Woodley, and to Pettis, which he got knocked out, is a pretty bad defeat. So he hasn't gotten a title shot is because he was doing poorly. But he's finally kind of got the ball rolling, has 2 wins back to back, which is, again, is not the biggest thing. I mean, it's just one more fight than Colby. You know what I'm saying? It's not the biggest thing in the world, not the biggest streak, not the most convincing streak. But, I mean, it is something, right? 2 wins in a row. So I don't want to... It shouldn't be framed as like, what does he have to do to get a title shot? As in, like, yo, this dude's been campaigning for it and been kicking ass for years, and he needs the next shot. No, the guy's just getting back on his feet, really, with that 2-fight winning streak. I mean, what he has to do next is beat Durinho. That's the fight that's booked, right? What card is that? He is supposed to fight Durinho on July 10th at UFC 264. So I think on July, if Burns wins, I don't know if he gets a title shot. But if Wonderboy wins, I think he definitely gets a title shot. We'll see what happens with Usman as far as his availability. Obviously, if he comes back later in the year, say fall, Wonderboy wins in the summer, early summer, I don't know if he's going to wait for a build-up for a Covington-Usman fight, wait the result, wait for them to get healthy again, and then fight them, probably whoever wins, most likely Usman, right? Early 2022. I don't know if that's in the books for him. Obviously, if Usman decides to do another quick turnaround, he seems to be relatively healthy leaving that Masvidal fight, then it could be more feasible for maybe a Wonderboy title fight later this year in the winter. But yeah, we'll see. It's all about timing. But I do think once he beats Durinho Burns, who's a beast, he'll become undeniable. And I don't buy that the Woodley fights turned the UFC off from Stephen and Wonderboy Thompson, because if you look at his record and his fights, if the UFC didn't really like him, they would put him in the prelims. That's a clear sign. But the guy fought at UFC 244, which was the Masvidal Nate Diaz fight. I was there, huge card, and I believe he was the opener. No, he wasn't the opener. He was right below the co-main event against Vicente Luque, and I believe he got fight of the night. Yes, he did. So, again, bonus and a main card placement on a huge pay-per-view. And then he headlined a UFC Fight Night in his last outing against Jeff Neal, in which he got performance of the night. So, he's got bonuses in his last 2 fights, and he's been in important cards. One pay-per-view main card and the other UFC Fight Night main event. So that should tell you, like, he's in the good graces with the UFC, and he should be. He's a pretty cool dude. He strikes as a guy that you would want to have in your company, good representative of the UFC and the sport. So I don't think it's about the Woodley fights. I think it's about what he's done. And again, he's just getting back on his feet with a solid and impressive 2-fight winning streak. But I think 3-0, get that win over Durinho Burns, and I think you're fighting for the title. I mean, at that point, if he doesn't, then this question matters. Then you got to go, okay, what does he have to do to get the next title shot? Because 3-0 against Vicente Luque, Jeff Neal, and Durinho Burns, like that is title shot worthy right there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But hold your horses on that question, James. Bum, ba-dum, bum. All right, let's see here. Amy Wee. Shouts out to Amy. She says, or she asks, Will we ever get Masvidal versus Nate Diaz 2? I think the answer to that one's yes. I think that's an easy fight booking. I didn't think an immediate rematch makes sense, but like the more we are farther apart from that first fight, I think the more it makes sense. Obviously, Masvidal just lost to Usman back to back twice, and we'll see how Nate Diaz performs against Leon Edwards. I think if he wins, like he's gonna have a lot of leverage to do maybe not everything. I don't think he'll get a title shot, but he's gonna have a lot of leverage as far as where he wants to fight and who he wants to fight. So we'll see. I think that's depending. But if he loses against Leon Edwards and still looks competitive, doesn't look like a washed fighter because again he's inactive and he's been around for quite some time. Um, he's fairly, I don't want to say old, but how old is Nate Diaz? He's not too old, but he's certainly not young. If he goes out there and just looks extremely bad against Leon Edwards, I do wonder what's the appetite going to be surrounding a Nate Diaz fight. He's 36. Yeah, that's pretty old. Masvidal is 36 as well. I believe he turns 37 fairly soon. So, look, if both fighters are coming off losses, yeah, run that back. I don't think anyone has an issue with that. You can easily run it in a common event of a big pay-per-view, just like they were going to do it because this Nate Diaz-Leon Edwards fight got postponed. But just like they were going to do it for this next pay-per-view. 5 rounds, common event of a pay-per-view, and that could be a big event. You can even put that BMF title on the line, right? Like, I don't think anybody's going to complain about, the rightful people to fight for that type of title is going to be Nate Diaz or Jorge Masvidal. So if they do the second one and they put the title on the line and Nate Diaz wins it, they can do a third one in the future as well. Like, I don't think anybody opposes to that. I certainly don't. So I think we'll get the Masvidal Nate Diaz fight too at some point. I think the timeline will depend on what Nate Diaz does against Leon Edwards, but at some point that fight will happen. Huge fight. Let's see here. Thoughts on Usman saying Colby is not deserving of the next fight of one huge win, yet gave Masvidal a rematch of 0 wins against Usman. Yeah, I was kind of like kicking myself after the interview with Ali. Again, it's over at MMA Junkie. You can check that out. I forgot to do that follow-up because he was saying like, oh, I don't think that Colby deserves a rematch. And, I asked him about it. We talked about other topics as well, but I really wanted to follow up and ask him, so what about Masvidal? He's got no wins. In fact, he's coming off a loss to Usman, fairly dominant, and yet, you guys were cool with fighting him. So what's the deal with Colby? I should have asked that, but in the interview you sometimes miss some things. But yeah, it's definitely a good question, and I think it's pretty obvious they don't like they don't like Colby. I mean, I don't think they like Masvidal. Ali said that to me, but they respect him. I mean, I think Masvidal hasn't crossed certain lines that Colby has. And I think there's definitely another level of bad blood that they have for Colby. And they also understand, like, look, I know Usman is the champion, but the A side as far as popularity is Masvidal. And there's a lot to gain from fighting Jorge Masvidal. So I think they were able to kind of look away at the hate they have for him and make that fight happen. As far as Colby, there's just too much hate to look away from. And Colby's not nearly as big of a star as compared to Masvidal. So I think on that end, they're probably like, yeah, we can fight anybody else and sell just about the same or close, and then not give him another title shot. Another opportunity to make good money and fight for a world title. So I think that's kind of where that stems. But again, I've yet to confirm it because my dumbass forgot to ask. So yeah. James Fallon Cote with another really good question. Likelihood of Glover Teixeira winning against Polish Power. I actually give the guy a really good chance. And I'll elaborate in a second. I'm super parched. I don't know why. I don't know if you guys can tell in my speaking. But yeah, that's a good question, man. And I really do like Glover Teixeira's chances at whatever age he is, like 42 or some shit like that. Let me see. old Glover. Old man Glover. How old is the guy? He's really old. He's 41. He's 41. Yeah, that's old. It's crazy that a 40-year-old can be a world champion fighting, right? Um, that to me sounds so crazy, but look at Cormier, look at so many others that have been able to do it. But yes, a 40-year-old man, a man in his 40s can be the best at fighting. That's crazy. But that speaks volumes on how good Glover Teixeira is. And I've gone ham on a lot of these live chats that I do about Glover Teixeira. I'm a huge fan of Glover Teixeira. I think he is a phenomenal fighter, very funny guy. But from a technique standpoint and evolution standpoint and fight IQ, I'm amazed about what the guy's been able to do in his career. Like the fact that he fought John Jones for a world title back in like 2013 or some shit. Let me see, 2014. I'm sorry. And the fact that 7 years later, he's able to reinvent himself after some brutal losses. Like he got knocked out by Anthony Johnson pretty bad. He got knocked out by Alexander Gustafsson pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? And yet he comes back and mounts a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 winning streak, taking on some of the toughest dudes at 205. Just vicious competition. And picking up a lot of finishes. We're talking about 3 submissions and 1 TKO and 1 split decision. Like that's pretty damn good. And you're doing that at close to 40 and 40, 41. Ooh, take my hat off to that guy. Like that's impressive. You know what I'm saying? And the way he's been able to do it, he was always known for his boxing. He was a good boxer, and he still has that boxing technique. But he's aged, obviously, just as I'm aging right now. And his speed and reflexes have been deteriorating. That's very normal. So he just uses now wrestling and his great jiu-jitsu. And he's got a very, very good top game. He's got very good survival instinct. Like if he's rocked, he knows where he's at. He just needs to get a grip of you, and that's it. And yeah, the guy's just brilliant. And I think there's a chance he might out wrestle Jan Blachowicz. And think about this. I called that Jan Blachowicz was going to be champion. I called that he was going to beat Dominic Reyes. You can look back and confirm that if you guys don't believe me. And I called that he was going to beat Israel Adesanya. Everybody thought I was crazy, but I think the Polish power is heavily underestimated. But just as the Polish power is heavily underestimated, I also think Glover Teixeira is heavily underestimated. I think with Khabib now retired, Glover Teixeira, and I really do mean this, he might be the most dominant grappler, or at least one of the most dominant grapplers, at least top 5 today in the UFC. I mean, if that guy takes you down, he keeps you down. His ground and pound is nasty. He is experienced in the sense of like he knows to maintain, he knows the right amount of busy to like avoid any stand-ups. Like when does Glover Teixeira get a stand-up? If he takes you down, you're staying down. He's so smart about his ground and pound, when to land, when not to land, when to pass, when not to pass, what positions to hold on to, where to exert energy. And his submissions are just brutal. He's sneaky good. So I really do think he's one of the most, at least on the top game, one of the best grapplers today in the UFC. Definitely top 5, might be the very best with Khabib now gone. He's definitely up there. So yeah, he's a beast, man, and I think he can beat Jan Blachowicz. I think if he's able to take him down, can he submit the Polish power? Sure. Can he wear him down over 2-3 rounds like he did to Thiago Santos and eventually get the submission win? Yes. And look, he's still got a chin. I mean, he the shots that he took from Santos were pretty vicious. I think Jan Blachowicz has better power than Santos, but not by much. Santos is a pretty hard hitter, so I give him a chance for sure. I think a slight favorite should be Jan Blachowicz entering that fight, but I do not sleep on Glover, and I do not think he doesn't stand a chance in that fight. I would give him a 35 or 40% chance of winning that fight. Edwin Campos asks, as soon as Ronda Rousey, we knew it was over. How do how do you see McGregor era ending? When does losing become too much? He loses often. Yes and no. I feel like we do have this perceived notion that McGregor is just on a terrible losing streak and he loses a shit ton. But I don't necessarily think that's true. Um, I just think he's lost so bad that it's always like such a big deal. But but it's really not as bad as people think it is. Also, one of the losses, Big L, that he took was in boxing against Mayweather. I don't count that, but I feel like that still stays in people's minds. Dude, in the last, he's 3-3 in his last 6 fights. That's as bad as his record gets. 3-3 in his last 6 fights. Since 2016, he's only lost 3 times. He's beaten Nate Diaz, he's beaten Eddie Alvarez, and he's beaten Donald Cerrone. But he's lost to Nate Diaz, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Dustin Poirier. The Diaz fight, look, Diaz, I think he's great. I think Diaz is a fantastic fighter, and with the right type of matchup, he can be a nightmare. And I think he matches up very well with... What the fuck is my dog doing? Sorry. He was underneath. Never mind. All right. You good, bro? Hutch. Yeah, he's good. Anyways, so Diaz is a bad matchup for him. And then look, he lost to Khabib, the greatest lightweight of all time, and he lost to Dustin Poirier, a guy that could easily be champion in today's UFC's lightweight division. So, and he won the first round against Poirier. Keep that in mind. I don't think McGregor is really on a downfall as bad as people say he is. I don't think he's a top 5 fighter from what I saw against Poirier, and from what I can see what other lightweights can do in the top 5. But he's right there. If he's not top 5, he's got to be like 6 or 7. And a guy that's ranked 6 or 7 in one of the best divisions in the UFC can still do a lot of damage and pick up a lot of wins depending on who he fights. So we'll see. We'll see. This Dustin Poirier fight is really important. I do think if he... I don't know if you guys can hear my dog, but let me... One sec. Hutch. All right, my bad, guys. There's a ball that went underneath a chair and he couldn't get it, so he was just going crazy. But anyways, yeah, we'll see what happens with Dustin Poirier. I think even if he loses to Dustin Poirier, I think we can say goodbye to Conor McGregor being a champion, to Conor McGregor being a title contender, and that's when we're gonna enter the money era, when you're gonna see him fight Jorge Masvidal, who's also in a losing streak, but he's a very well-known name. He's going to go on and fight Nate Diaz a 3rd time and do that trilogy. And we'll see what other money fights open up for him in the UFC and in boxing. But certainly if he loses to Poirier, we can for sure, maybe not for sure, but be pretty confident that Conor McGregor's era being an elite fighter, meaning being a top 5. That's what a top 5 fighter means. An elite fighter means being a top 5. At 32 years of age, with the money that he's got, we can forget about him fighting for another title. We can forget about him being a title contender. We're just going to enter a money era fight. And yeah, he can go on and beat Nate Diaz again. He can go on and beat Jorge Masvidal. Why not? That's possible. But yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. But his career itself won't be over. So we'll see. This Dustin Poirier fight is huge, and historically, he does well in rematches. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Aside from Wonderboy, who is the most deserving welterweight? Who is the most deserving of the welterweight title shot? Would they throw Nate up on the plate if he somehow beats Leon Edwards? I don't think so. The UFC has had a tough relationship with Nate Diaz as far as getting, fights booked, etc., etc. I mean, really, they were kind of just discarding him at some point, but he saved his ass by fighting Conor McGregor and becoming a star. They kind of didn't see that coming. And then once he's a big star, well, they obviously have to use him. And even then, they've had a difficulty keeping Nate Diaz active, and this been, he's been very vocal about the UFC not playing with him and not giving him favors as they do to others. Um, Obviously, I think in everything, the truth always lies in the middle, not always right down the middle, but there's always a little bit of give and take here. I'm sure the UFC also has certain points that they're probably right on as far as how Nate Diaz has carried his career or is willing to do business. But certainly, they don't have a great relationship. It's good, it's decent at some times, but overall, it's not like they work very well. So with that being said, and keeping in mind that Nate Diaz is not a very active fighter, I don't think they'll put him up in a title shot and just give him maybe the opportunity for him to win a title. Because if he's champion, it's gonna could bring a lot of headaches to the UFC. But again, what are the chances you give him against Usman? Very slim, right? So would they take that gamble? Maybe, but I don't know how they justify a title shot for Nate Diaz after just beating Leon Edwards and having all these other contenders like Vicente Luque, Wonderboy Thompson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many. Colby Covington, you can go down the line. So we'll see. Never say never. We've seen crazier shit, but I really doubt that they're going to give him a title shot if he beats Leon Edwards. Really doubt it. I also doubt that Nate Diaz is going to beat Leon Edwards. It's a tough fight, man. So it's a big if, What team does Dominic Reyes train with? Has he reached his ceiling? I don't know, but certainly he's not in a good spot. He's not doing well with heavy hitters. Jerry, obviously a heavy hitter, and the legendary Polish power, UFC light heavyweight champion, Jan Blachowicz, obviously a heavy hitter. He doesn't have a bad chin, though, but once he starts getting cracked, he's not able to implement his game. I feel like he kind of shows up and things starts going downhill from him. Because, like, when he was fighting Blachowicz, he was doing all right. Like, he wasn't doing bad. And once he got hit with, like, a really good body shot and got cracked a couple times, you really saw him kind of dwindle down and then just see that Polish power grow, That was kind of the case here. So let's see here. I'm pulling up his record real quick. Because maybe I'm talking shit. Maybe I can prove myself wrong here. Yeah, I mean, if you look at his record, also his record was, I don't want to shit on the guy, but like it wasn't great as well. I mean, I don't want to say it was wolf tickets and they sold us on this guy that was, one of the greatest like heavyweights ever. But like, look, he joined the UFC and he beat Joaquin Christensen, okay. Jeremy Kimball, okay, submitted him. Jared Cannonier, okay, but Jared Cannonier that fights at 185, but still, Jared Cannonier is pretty good, heavy hitter. Ovian Sempru, I mean, Sempru doesn't have the greatest record. A lot of people get past him. You certainly have to be good, right? Volkan Ozdemir, a split decision, and Chris Weidman, moving up to light heavyweight. So, not again. I'm not saying it's a bad record. Yes, he was undefeated. Yes, he stopped a lot of those guys. Yes, he looked good, but it's not like he's out here beating Glover Teixeira and these other names that hold a lot more weight and value, right? And then he goes and fights John Jones. I thought he beat John Jones. He had an excellent performance. There's also questions about the current state of John Jones, right? And then he fights Jan Blachowicz, has a stoppage defeat, and then Jiri Prochaska and has a stoppage defeat as well. I don't know what to make of him, to be honest. That's a tough one. I really don't know what to make of him. I do think he's a good fighter. You cannot get to a UFC world title and be a bad fighter. He's certainly a good fighter. He's either one of the best fighters, maybe not, but he's certainly a good fighter. And look, a lot of good fighters would lose to Jan Blachowicz and Prochaska. So we'll see. We'll see. I think his next fights are going to be more indicative moving forward, So we'll see. We'll see. And he's young. He's like, what, 29 maybe? He's 31. So, yeah, he's still young. We'll see. We'll see. But I think that John Jones fight um kind of oversold his stock a little bit because people really thought he won. Like I said, I thought he won, so people just saw him as the uncrowned champion of the UFC light heavyweight division, and then he goes on and gets stopped twice. So we'll see what's next for him, but he certainly hasn't looked too good. Has he reached his ceiling at 31? I do think there's still some room for him to grow. Again, Usman is hitting levels that we never thought he would hit at like a fairly late age. I think Usman's like 34. So, and he's just hitting them now. So imagine that. Reyes is 3 years younger. And he trains with, according to Wikipedia, Cage Combat Academy. I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to see him. I think it's always good to like change, maybe not change teams permanently, but like go train somewhere else. Go pick up some knowledge elsewhere. Check out other styles, check out other coaches, seek other knowledge, and add that to your game. So we'll see how he does moving forward. I don't think he's hit his ceiling, but I'm not necessarily here declaring that there's a lot left in his career and he can reach these crazy levels of development where he can go on and become champion. I don't know. We'll see. My guess is maybe not, but I think at 31 it's kind of too early to tell, and especially at his stage in his career. For example, I'm more comfortable saying what I said about Conor. Let's see here. We're almost halfway through the year. Who is the front runner for coach/team of the year so far? Probably Trevor Whitman, right? He's defended the title twice with Usman. He just got Rose Namajunas to dethrone Zhang Weili. That's pretty big, and we're only 5 months into this thing. So I would say him. I mean, who else? I'm trying to think of others that are worth mentioning. Eric Nixick, right? Won a title with Francis Ngannou. That's kind of nice, but I still think Trevor Whitman with 2 title defenses under his belt and a title regain with Rose Namajunas. I think that's pretty damn impressive. So I think him for now. Darby Crash. He wants to know, UFC has fight night bonuses. PFL also rewards finishes in their tournaments. Do you think Bellator should also adopt bonuses to get more finishes? Viral KOs are what bring fans' attention. Maybe. I think the key here is diversity, because I think a lot of these fighters also like that Bellator doesn't really have, as far as I'm concerned, that many win bonuses. Like it's usually like a paycheck, like a purse up front, and I think a lot of fighters prefer that. Ryan Bader's been very vocal about it, and others as well. So I think it's good to have options. So again, I think it's good to have a variety of different styles and stuff. So the UFC has a certain style, PFL certainly has its own style, and Bellator does too. And sometimes the UFC is not going to be the best fit for you, but Bellator might be, or maybe not Bellator, but maybe PFL will be. Maybe you're not a tournament guy, but you got the personality and you don't want to be fighting as often, so you can fight twice a year. But maybe the UFC can capitalize on that and sort of sell your stock and have you just fight twice a year. I like the variety, so I mean, I think it's fine with the way Bellator is doing things, and I don't really see people or fighters out there campaigning and vouching like, hey, I really want fight night bonuses. I'm sure they think it'd be nice, but from what I hear, and today for example, I interviewed Eric Gojito Perez, and we were talking a little bit off camera, and Bellator pays pretty well. Pays pretty well, and this guy, he's a guy that fought in the UFC for a long time. So if he's telling me that, then I don't think he's lying to me. So Different styles, different styles. All right, I'm gonna answer a couple more, and I'm gonna dip out. Yeah. Did Leon Edwards walk under a ladder? Seems to have a string of bad luck. Eye poke and now postpone fight with Diaz. Yeah, that dude has the worst luck in MMA. Actually, no, Tony Ferguson has the worst luck in MMA. He's lost a lot more than Leon at this point. We'll see. We'll see how Leon's career does, moving forward. But yeah, he does have pretty bad luck. I don't know what's his deal. I mean, first of all, it was a battle to get fights, right? The UFC doesn't get behind him. The UFC finally gets behind him. They aren't able to get him fights. Champion doesn't want to fight him. Fans barely know him. He literally is responsible for one of the most viral moments in MMA history, the 3-piece in the soda, and gets no benefit from that. Like literally, it was almost bizarre how like he could be involved in all that and yet he's forgotten about it. A lot of it's career management, luck, decision making. The fact that he's not in the US is big as well. The pandemic then screwed him over because he was supposed to fight Tyron Woodley, what Durinho was gonna do or did, and look, Durinho got a huge win, and all of a sudden he got a title shot off that. That should have been Leon Edwards, but the pandemic screwed him over. Look, there's a lot of weird things that have happened, but I think on the bright side, look, he got the Nate Diaz fight, and it was pretty bizarre that Nate Diaz wanted this fight anyways. But yeah, I mean that there's no bad luck there. In fact, quite some good luck because Nate Diaz is it's a hard guy to fight. Nate Diaz doesn't fight anybody, so yeah, that's some good luck. Yeah, it got postponed, but it seems that Nate Diaz still wants that fight, and it seems it'll go down just in a later date. So we'll see. Alex Howie. Who would you like to see Nick Diaz fight in his return? Lawler rematch, maybe? Yeah, Lawler's fine. I believe I answered this in the last live Q&A. I think Carlos Condit is probably my leading candidate. I talked to Condit before his last fight on his contract. I should probably hit him up again. But yeah, he was all down for a Nick Diaz fight. And I think it makes perfect sense. I think both guys probably still have a lot left in them as far as, being competent fighters and going out there and not embarrassing themselves. Like they're clearly like not washed. Obviously, they may be as good as they were maybe like 5 years ago when they were the best welterweights on the planet and fighting for world titles. Maybe not, but they're certainly very good fighters with very high levels of skill still. So, dude, you guys know I'm all about the Legends division, so that'd be certainly a unofficial bout right there of the Legends division. So Condit versus Nick Diaz, I'm all in. Condit versus Nick Diaz versus Lawler, I'm all in as well. I think those two matchups made perfect sense for him. Is Ian McCall your relative? No. But I do get that a lot, that we look alike. This was my first event I ever went to as a fan. First UFC event I ever went to. It was in Florida. When they were doing the whole flyweight tournament, when they kicked off the division. And Demetrius wasn't champion then. And they had brought Ian McCall from Tachi Palace. Before he joined the UFC, he was regarded as one of the best flyweights at the time. And it was a good fight. It was a fun fight. Ian McCall is fan favorite. One of my favorite fighters back in the day. And this poster's signed. I think the glare doesn't... You can't see it very well, but it's signed by Demetrius here. It's signed by Ian McCall. So I know it seems like a random poster, like why do you have that on? But it does have significance. The first event I ever went to, obviously as a fan, and it's signed. Let's see here. I'll answer one more and dip out. Oh, shit. Brandon Sanchez. What's going on in Colombia? Is it all about taxes? Are those vids real or propaganda? They're real. They're definitely real. Colombia is going through a tough time right now. All of Latin America, really. The pandemic is the pandemic is I mean, the pandemic has brought to light inequality. Not only inequality within the US, but inequality among other countries. And for example, like you can see US having so much money, you can see how they're doing in the pandemic compared to other countries that are developing nations such as Colombia. Like for example, I'll give you an example. In Colombia, if you want to get a COVID test, you have to pay. There isn't such thing as a free COVID test, and there aren't as abundant as they are here in in the US. I can get a COVID test free and I get a text saying that I'm good to go or I got COVID. I don't have COVID yet, knocking wood. I'm vaccinated, by the way. But yeah, so you see all those kinds of things. So Colombia has been struggling with the pandemic. So has many other countries in Latin America. They've been struggling with not having the right infrastructure for healthcare coverage as far as COVID-19, right? They also don't have a strong economy compared to like the US, so they've had mandatory lockdowns, and it's really hit the economy really hard. The Colombian government doesn't have such thing as compared to the US, doesn't have as good as like unemployment, and they don't hand out stimulus checks or anything like that. Like people are really struggling, man. And then on top of that, they decided to bring out the reforma tributaria, and they decided to charge higher tax across all board, not only the rich but also the poor, and bring up the tax on simple products like eggs, beans, rice, milk, everything that you would regularly buy for your family. So people have already been squeezed, and they've been struggling with these crazy lockdowns that they put in place, and rightfully so, right? I mean, we can debate this. This is another topic, right? But certainly, at least in measures to protect COVID-19, from COVID-19 to protect the country, there hasn't been much aid to the people. And then on top of that, you're going to bring taxes higher. So people went out and protested. And protesting works. The president actually backed down and retrieved the reforma tributaria, and they are not bringing up the taxes. But there's still being a lot of protests because there's a lot of corruption. And a lot of these people that are in offices and work for the government, they're not taking pay cuts, and there's been a lot of unanswered corruption in Colombia. So people are sick of it. And they're out there protesting, and there's been a lot of military and police action. There's been deaths, and the situation's rough, man. It's tough. It's really shitty, and it's really sad. Kind of wanted to post something today, but I was kind of having a hard time finding words, and I got busy with work and stuff. But people are struggling over there, man, and that's not just Colombia. It's happening elsewhere as well. In Latin America, like Brazil, people are having a tough time with this pandemic. So it goes beyond that. It's not just about the taxes. It's about all these other shitty things that are happening to the country, and then on top of that, these corrupt ass politicians put this crazy taxes on the people, so now is not the time to bring up taxes on the poor. Like, it's just not. So it's really sad what's happening in Colombia. And I just want to use this as well as an example, because I see this often in certain circle of friends that I have, as well as online. But everyone wants to make it out as the US is, especially like young people, and I'm not trying to get political here, but everyone wants to make it out as the U.S. is like the worst country to live in. And all the time online is like the U.S. is such a piece of shit country, and the U.S. this and the U.S. that, and the U.S. sucks, and look at all this dire situation. And I'm not here to say that the U.S. is perfect. Certainly not. And America has its issues. And I believe also in protesting and making your voice heard. I mean, it is your right to do so. And certainly, you should always strive to make things better, and I'm all for that. But this notion that like the U.S. is like the worst country to live in is absolutely bullshit. Like, if you were born in America or you were able to immigrate here, you're privileged. you're privileged, because there's a lot of people trying to cross the desert and dying. There's a lot of people letting their 13, 14-year-old kids cross the desert by themselves and potentially face death, rape, kidnapping, gang violence, etc., just to have a better future in the US. So this notion that like America is like the worst place to live in and everyone wants to move out because that's the trend and everyone wants to say it's bullshit. Like, go to Colombia. You don't have to go to like these other countries that have been historically known, right? Like war-torn countries in Africa, like Congo and many others. Dude, you can just take a flight 3 hours to Colombia and see how bad shit is over there. You know what I'm saying? So again, if you live in the US, whether you were born here or immigrate here, like, don't take that for granted. A lot of people are going through, way tougher shit than us, than over here. But again, I know we're rant, but yeah, man, shit's crazy. Shit's crazy in Colombia, and my good vibes and prayers go to everybody in Colombia, because what they're going through is definitely not easy. Pineapple on pizza, yes, 100%. If you don't like pineapple on pizza, you're a freak. You're weird. It's delicious. Dude, so many good questions, but I kind of gotta go. Let's see here. In Campos, who do you favor right now, Jones or Ngannou? Ngannou. I think good luck taking that guy down. He's just so heavy. I wonder how much John Jones is bulking. That'll definitely help. But I'll take Ngannou. Sorry. I know Jones is the GOAT, but you got to go with what you can't go with history. You got to go with what you see now. And Jones hasn't looked great in his last few title defenses, and he's taking a few shots from some of those guys. And granted, he's got an amazing chin, but an amazing chin means absolutely nothing when you're facing Ngannou, because whether you have a good chin or not, he'll knock you the fuck out. That's just facts. So John Jones better up his defense if he wants to fight. If he wants to fight Ngannou and beat him. So right now I got Ngannou. And that's not to say Ngannou's a better fighter, right? Again, it's just the weight difference is just huge. I think if you turned Ngannou into a 205er, say kind of like an Anthony Johnson, I think probably John Jones wins. But again, this is Ngannou's home at heavyweight. Will you ever work alongside Luke and BC again? So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I did enjoy my time when I was doing the MMA beat with them. Certainly fun. I talked to Luke. I consider Luke a friend of mine. At some point, I think I'm trying to like. I've been so busy, but at some point, I want to revamp this and kind of give it a new coat of paint and add a little bit of graphics and make this a little bit more like this live Q&A, a little bit more more my taste of what I want to do. You guys will see what I'm talking about once I get that done. I do have plans for that. It just requires money and time, and again, I just haven't gone around to it. But at some point, I'd like to have guests on. Maybe not as frequent because I don't want to depend on anybody, but every now and then, maybe every 10th episode, I would have maybe somebody on, and certainly I would consider Luke to be on here for sure. He's a good friend, so why not? Yeah, and BC again. I love BC. We're not as tight because I don't know him as much as I do Luke, but I enjoyed working with him. He's a cool cat, and other people as well. Yeah. All right, I'm out of here, guys. I am tired. My voice is super parched. My lips are super parched. If I've been pronouncing shit weird all episode, is because like this is so weird, man. It happens from time to time, and it's weird. It happens when I speak a lot. So like by the end of these live Q&As where I'm just talking for an hour nonstop, I kind of feel that way post. But like right from the start, I've been just feeling weird. So yeah, glad this is over. Hopefully this wasn't a pain for you guys with my parchness here. But yeah, Let us see the hair, man. That's why I put on a hat, because my hair's crazy right now. But I actually recently got a haircut. But yeah, I've had better hair days. Maybe tomorrow it'll look good. Jesus, I can't even talk right now. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Subscribe, like, you know the drill. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram at Danny Segura TV. Good chat. Appreciate everybody that submitted questions. Thank you so much. This week on my Spanish YouTube channel, Hablemos MMA, I got interviews coming out with Enrique Barzola and Eric Gojito Perez, who's fighting at Bellator 258. They're all in Spanish. If you don't know Spanish, I'll have an English write-up in the on MMAJunkie.com, so you won't miss out. Sounds good. Again, much love. Have a good week. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week, likely at 10:30 a.m. If not, 7:30 p.m. So take care. Peace.